Good day and welcome to our fourth of 8 sessions. This session covers customers / students and accounts receivables. So this session will be looking at creating revenue items, which are inventory items, service items, and non-inventory items. As I said earlier, inventory items are items that you track from purchasing to when you dispose of the item, either by selling or giving it away. A service item, on the other hand, is an intangible item, and an inventory item is an item that you do not track. So an non-inventory item can be used for a number of things, or in a number of scenarios, I should say. We're going to be looking at inventory, service, and non-inventory from a receivables perspective. We have looked at them from a payables perspective, and now we're going to be looking at them from a receivables perspective. So the previous session we have used inventory items, or we have used all of these items in the previous sessions on purchase transactions. Now we are going to be using these items on sales transactions. We are also going to be looking at invoicing. We will be creating invoicing for fees. Some persons prefer to call it parent contribution. And we'll also be creating sales receipt for accessories and services offered by schools. We will also be focusing on receiving payments and generating statements for this session. So let's get started. So we're going to start by adding some items. So we go to list and item list, and the same procedure as we have done for the expenditure session. Right click anywhere and click on new. What we'll be creating is a service item. I'm using transcript. Most schools would offer this service of preparing a transcript. And it's very important that the correct account is selected. So we just use the broad income account there for demonstration purposes. Transcript would go to the relevant income account. Yes, so our item list is now growing. That's where we reach in terms of the item that we have added so far. Once you add an item, it will appear here. And you right click to add new items. So to add a new item, you right click and you select new. We are now going to add another item, and this is another service item. going to add another item that another service that most schools would offer, and that is photocopying. Most schools would offer the service of photocopying, so we're going to add that service. So we're now going to create a service item for grant, and this is we're going to set this up as a non-inventory part. We're going to create an item called regular grant. We are creating an item called regular grant, and it's the same procedure as how we would create an item. It's just that we are choosing the type to be a non-inventory part. And the income account would be regular grant. We're going to look for that income account and we're going to select it, and we're going to make the name very specific because there is an account called regular grant, and this is on the chart of accounts. We're going to put that particular revenue item to the actual account, and there are more than one grants on the chart of accounts, so we're going to create a MOE grant for maintenance. So we're going to set it up as a non-inventory. Or if you should set it up as a service, it still would not affect anything. You can choose whether you want to set it up as a service or a non-inventory. As long as you don't set it up as an inventory part, you won't be having any problems. So you select the regular account, the relevant account, which is the MOE subvention grant maintenance. So we are creating an item or a revenue item by the name of parent contribution, and most schools would get some form of or collect some sort of fees from students or from the parents, and this would go to the parent contribution account. Right, I know that for government institutions, this contribution is not mandatory, but still need to be provided for on the books. However, for private institutions, I know this fee would be mandatory. So we will now look at creating invoicing for fees, and these fees items that we'll be creating will actually be linked to the income side of the budget. So it will be linked to the income side of the budget. But before we do so, we are going to be creating an inventory item. We have created one inventory item before, which is a Pepsi. So we're going to create another item, which is a banana chips, for demonstration purposes, to be able to use these items in the invoicing for the tuck shop unit. So we're going to enter the cost of this item and the selling price. So we have already created one in the previous session, which is the Pepsi, and we are creating another inventory item. So enter the reorder point, and we enter the quantity and the quantity and times the cost will automatically populate the total value, and this is as at the 31st of August. So we enter in all the balances as at the 31st of August, and we select OK. But an income account is mandatory, so we're going to put that to the broad income account, but that would go to the relevant income account based on the Ministry of Education's chart of accounts or the budget. Okay, so we are at creating invoicing for fees, and to be able to create invoices for fees, we first need to create the items that would go on such invoice, the line items that would be linked to the parent contribution account. So we are going to be creating an item called parent contribution, and this item will be linked to the parent contribution account. And the description, we need to, in the item name, we need to put the year, because we need to be able to just look at parent contribution for a particular year on the item list and do a quick report that would generate the total parent contribution. So the more detail you put in the system, the more detail you can get from the system. So we are going to actually enter the year for the parent contribution. Or we can enter the grade as well. So we can make it detailed. So we can say parent contribution grade 7 to 11. So it all depends on how you want to track parent contribution. Item number or name field can only hold up to a certain number of characters, so you may need to shorten for it to actually fit in the area. You can put the same thing for the description, so parent contribution 7 to 11, and that's academic year 2020 to 2021. You are going to be linking it to parent contribution, and you will not enter in, well, you need to enter an amount for parent contribution, because this amount would change from year to year. So we're going to set it up for $7,500 for demonstration purposes. I'm going to close the spell checker, and there it is. We have created a parent contribution. And you need to enter the actual cost for the tuition in the price section. We're back at our item list, and there you can see we have created two different parent contribution, one for 2021 and one for 2022. Now we're going to be looking at creating batch invoicing or invoices for fees / contribution. Okay, so to create a batch invoice, you would go to customer and you would select create batch invoices. However, before you can do a batch invoice, there needs to be a certain criteria met. So one, we need to create the students that we are going to invoice. In a school situation where you have up to 1,400 students, it may be more applicable or relevant to import these students. And there's a video on our YouTube channel. I'm going to attach it to this course as well, that shows how to import the students. Alright, we're going to just add a few students for demonstration purposes. So we added Tom Strokes, that's student number 1. And what we're going to be doing now is to set the criteria to be able to invoice the students that we need to invoice when we are doing a batch invoice. So we're going to create a custom field and we're going to label it grade. It's very important that you create a custom field and label it grade. To ensure that you tick where this field would be used, and it's used in the customer database, so there it appears there in the customer database, and this will be there for all customers, so you can enter the grade. So if you type in grade 7, it saves to the database for this particular student. So what we're going to do, we're going to create about 4 students, and we're going to put 3 of them in grade 7 and 1 in grade 8. Because what we want to do a filter in generating the batch invoice, and the criteria that we'll be using is the grade. So we are basically inputting the data so we can do the filter. So we just added another student, student number 2, and now we're going to add our 3rd student. Select OK. Once you have inputted all the relevant information, this will save the student. We're going to add our 4th student. However, the difference with this student is that we're going to put this student in grade 8. There we have 4 students. So what we're going to be doing now is to create batch invoice for 3 of these students, which would be 75% of my small student population. So if you have 2,000 students, it's the same thing. We could do a batch invoice for 1,500 with just a click of a button. So what we are going to do is to, if you look for a grade, you're not going to see it, but you need to look for the data that you input, which is 7. So it shows, it looks within the database in the grade column for all the 7s. If you put in 8, it will look for all the 8s. Put in 9, it will say no result because we have not entered a student in grade 9. Right, so what we're going to do is to copy across all the students, right, and then we need to add these students to what is called a billing group. You're going to click add new, and then you create your billing group. Ensure that you copy across the students to the billing group. You have to do that and select save. Select save group. And there you are. Now you are at step number 2, where you're going to choose the items for the batch invoice. So we're going to look for the parent contribution items, or item. So parent contribution 2021-2022, which is $8,000. You can input a message, because this is an invoice that you would maybe put in the package for the students. So you would maybe give your students this invoice along with a voucher to make payment at the bank. We need to add class, very important. Class is required for every transaction in QuickBooks. Alright, so we're gonna quickly review to ensure that everything is okay. Then we're gonna click create invoices. Once we do that, invoices will be quickly generated. And there you have it. So we have an invoice created for 3 of the 4 students, and for all the grade 7 students that we want to create an invoice for. Okay, so now we are going to be looking at, and persons may ask, how do they receive these payments, and what if they don't receive these payments? What do they do at the end of a school year? How do they write off these amounts, and so on? So we're going to be looking at receiving payments. So you can right click on the customer and select receive payments, or you can go to customer from the menu bar, and you can select receive payment. Alright, this should take you to the customer payment screen. And once you enter the payment amount, we have entered $4,000. It shows you that $4,000 was paid and gives you the option of writing off the extra amount or the outstanding amount. So basically you enter $4,000 of the $8,000, and it will show you that there's a balance there, and if you want to leave it as an underpayment or you want to write it off. So you would decide what you want to do with that. We are now going to be looking at creating invoices for the accessories. So we're going to go back to our item list. We're going to create another. I'm going to create another inventory item. This time it is accessories. So we're creating crests, school crests, and we're going to put it to the broad income, but you would put it to the relevant income account based on the Ministry of Education's budget. And we're going to enter the quantity on hand and also the cost, and that will calculate the total value. If you want, you can enter a reorder point. A reorder point basically will prompt you whenever you need to reorder crests, so you don't run out. I'm gonna enter another accessory, and that's tie, and cost for 500, price 1,000. There's a $500 margin, and it's the same procedure to the quantity, and it will calculate the value. And we are basically going to use it as an opening balance item. So this item would have existed as at the 31st of August in a quantity of 1,000. So the opening balance is 1,000 ties, and there you have it. And those ties are sold for $1,000 each at the school. Now we're going to be looking at creating the sales receipt for the accessories. So you go to customer, enter sales receipt, select a customer, enter the class, school fees, or whatever class that is relevant to your institution. And you're going to ensure that the receipt date, which will come up as the system date if you have not changed any other settings. We're going to enter tie, and we're going to enter crest, which totals 1,250. QuickBooks does all the maths for you. So you're going to select save and close. So that's our sales receipt. But we need to ensure that the sales receipt matches the receipt in the receipt book that you are using at the school. So you need to enter your receipt number as per your receipt book. So we're going to do a slight modification. We're going to change the template for the word sale number. We're just going to rename that field for it to say receipt number. If you are printing your sales receipt from the system, what you just need to do is to enter the first control number on your pre-printed sales receipt form, and the system will continue to count. I know some schools use the system to print receipt, but I know most of them use a manual receipt book where they write the receipt and then repost it to the system. Alright, write it and then post it to the system. Okay, and that is how you would have done that modification. We're going to look at the sales receipt now for the tuck shop. So we're going to be looking at creating a sales receipt for tuck shop sales. And this is the same procedure, but this can be very helpful for institutions that has a tuck shop. We're going to add the tuck shop cashier. So this would be the person who takes the money to the bursar at the end of the day for a receipt to be written for all the funds that were collected at the tuck shop. So in this process, this cashier would bring either Z out from the machine at the tuck shop, would that be a manual machine or it's a computerized machine. The Z out are a listing of all the items that were sold for that day. If it is a case where you are using the QuickBooks point of sale, you don't need to do this, because the QuickBooks point of sale automatically sends over the sales data from the point of sale to QuickBooks Financial. So you don't need to do this data entry. So we're entering the items that were sold. So let's say you have 50 items. It means that you need to enter these 50 items and the quantities that were sold for each item on a particular day. The system allows you to create a template though, where you don't need to be re-entering those 50 items. You just select the template, the 50 items pops up, and you just enter the quantity sold for each of these items, which is pretty simple. So once you have entered all the items, what will happen is that you should be getting the total that is on the receipt, or that is on the Z out from the tuck shop machine, right? And that is what you're going to write the receipt for, and that is what will be posted to QuickBooks. So QuickBooks don't just give you a summary total, it gives you the breakdown of which items were sold. So it's tracking your inventory. If we should quickly look at our profit and loss by class report, we can see where we can get a report for our tuck shop. That is for our tuck shop that is separate from the fees, using the same MOE line items. So no need to create a new chart of accounts for your tuck shop. Use the one chart of accounts in the system to do everything. So once the item is classified, it should appear in one of the columns. There should be no items in your unclassified column. Whenever you post an item and you fail to assign a class, it will go to the unclassified column. If we want to filter based on just the TalkShop class, we can go to customize report and filter based on the class, and no, the only thing will be seen here is the TalkShop report. So that is why class is very important, and entering your sales in detail is important, because it allows you to generate the kind of reports that you would not have been able to. So we're going to look at receiving payments, and we are going to also look at changing the default account that the payments would have gone to once you receive payments. So we're going to go to customer, and we're going to click on receive payments. So QuickBooks will send a payment to the undeposited funds account by default, and the undeposited funds account is also created in QuickBooks by default. So that is not an account that a user will need to create. So in receiving a payment, you need to enter the method of payment, select the method of payment, I should say, and you can enter the reference number, which can be your internal reference number, your receipt number, or if it's a check, you can enter the check number. Right, but we are now going to show you how to view this undeposited funds account on your chart of accounts. So once you go to the chart of accounts on the company, you should see your undeposited funds account being listed there, and you can actually open the register and you'll see the transactions that are there to be deposited. So once you make a deposit, it will reduce the amount that is in your undeposited funds account. Whenever you have funds to deposit and you go to banking, it will pop up all these funds that are there in your undeposited funds to be deposited. Right, so that's simply how the undeposited funds would work. However, we don't want all payments to go to the undeposited funds account, so we're going to change this preference. So we're going to go to edit, and we're going to go to preferences, and we're going to go to payments on the left. Once we select payments, we can now untick the undeposited funds, use undeposited funds as a default deposit to account. Once you have done so, you will get the option of depositing to different bank accounts at the time of creating a receipt. And once you have made a change, QuickBooks will close all its windows to effect that change. So we may need to reopen Windows by going to the home screen, or using the menu bar to reopen the windows, or to open the windows that we actually want. So what we are going to be doing now, soon as we bring the windows back up, is to go back to our receipt. We're going to go back to customers and we're going to go to receive payments. And there is something new about the interface now. Now you see a field called deposit to. There you can actually change the account that you want to deposit the money to. So in the case of a direct deposit, you can directly deposit this amount to the relevant account. In this case, the fees account. So that is how you would make use of the direct deposit option, and you can enter a reference number as per your bank statement. We're now going to quickly look at generating a statement. So you may need to generate a statement at the end of a student's tenure or at the end of a year to see what outstanding fees are there, either for the student to progress to the following year in the case of a private institution, or whether the student has any outstanding amounts there that would prevent them from graduating in the case of private institution. Because I know for public institutions this is not so, as fees are not mandatory for public institutions. But a statement basically will show the opening balance, all the charges, all the payments, and the balance at the end of a particular period. And we have come to the end of session 4, and we have an assignment here for you. So 1, you're going to be creating 2 services, 2 inventory and 2 non-inventory items that are relevant to your institution. Secondly, you are going to be creating 6 students and do a batch invoice for fees for 4 of these students. And finally, you are going to create 2 sales receipts using inventory items. So this can be 2 sales receipts. So one of them could be a receipt for your tuck shop sales from your tuck shop cashier, and the other could be accessories sold to a student. Okay, so looking forward to see these assignments, and this assignment is due at the end of the course. So you can upload these assignments, try to get them done as early as possible, and upload them with your company file. Once you upload a backup of your company file, I'll be able to view these assignments at the end of the course.